back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Driveline Baseball and Driveline Academy are proud to present to you the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I'm your host, Deven Morgan. This is Driveline Academy podcast. Thanks for being here. Boys, girls, babies, pets, inanimate objects, welcome. Thanks for being here. We're back again. That's almost 2 weeks in a row with the pod. It's almost like we're back in a rhythm. I am your host, Deven Morgan, Director of Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Quick housekeeping as per usual. Axbat.com, code DL20 will get you 20% off with our good friends over at Axbat.com. D is in, man, I don't know, Divergent. L is in link, Divergent link. D is an L20 will get you 20% off at axbat.com. Go talk to Dane and my guys over there and go holler at them. Here's the thing though. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tryouts are open for the Driveline Academy. We got a limited number of spots, and we are starting to run tryouts now, as in this weekend now. You can sign up for those by going to our website. Actually, just go to our socials. You can go to the link tree, and you're going to find that link in there. You can sign up for either the youth tryout, 14 and under, or high school and up. So do that. Find that link on our social media. Why should you do it? Well, let me tell you why. You're going to come in, you're going to have like a 90-minute eval, and we're going to give you a great plan about like, this is where you are right now. This is how your stuff ranks up. This is an idea of how we think you could get you better. And whether you want to take that action and come join a Driveline Academy team, well, that's up to you. But you can come in and get that type of information for free. So go to our socials, click the link tree. You can sign up for tryouts. Beyond that, quite frankly, we're just like the best player development team container that you can find in God's known universe. And I don't mean that to say that like there aren't other people out there in the world doing it and doing it well, because I know that some of you are listening to you. So like, hey man, thanks for being a part of this thing. And thanks for trying to take some amount of signal and influence by the way that we do it, the way that you run your thing. But if you're close enough in the Pacific Northwest area to like get the real deal unfiltered, man, you should just like come check it out. I think we do our thing better than anybody else. And of course I'm going to say that because like I got 15 years in this space of trying to like come up with the best possible container. Some of that was motivated by a desire to make better, make youth baseball better. Some of that was motivated by a desire to have the best possible thing for my kids. And whether that's altruistic or not, you get the benefit. So if you want to check out what we're doing for Driveline Academy, come check that out. We're really going to run teams 11U to 18U next year. Like I said, we got a limited number of spots. We're not trying to grow a ton. We're just going to grow a little. Come holler at a player and talk to me about it. Beyond that, hi. It's nice to see you guys again. Got a decent amount of stuff to cover. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. And I think the thing that I want to start with the most is probably the thing that has given me the most amusement over the course of the last 24 hours. And that is the creation of Step Back Man. If you've watched any Major League Baseball recently and you've heard of a young prospect by the name of Mike Trout, fun fact, Mike Trout is still really good at baseball. Obviously dealt with a crap ton of injury stuff, but Mike Trout still really good at baseball. And the interesting part about this is that he has added a little bit of a move to his swing that is perhaps, I don't know. I mean, do I want to call it a shade unconventional? I think that's fair enough. And what he is doing that's a little bit unconventional is like he has a little bit of like a step back with his rear leg. And he is literally like stepping back as part of his load and using that as kind of like a load and a timing mechanism. And hey, when it results in like 113.2 mile an hour home runs, something's going well. So he's been using the step back thing. And then yesterday in his first AB went back to his old swing. So no step back, grounded out. And then immediately in the AB after that, went back to the step back and homered. And I offered with this very compelling side-by-side video that like, man, it's a real challenge for me to like not create my first ever burner account. And certainly creating that burner account is like Step Back Man, because obviously I got to be Step Back Man, And then all you would do as step back man is like talk mad reckless crap about any instructor that doesn't teach like the step back system. And obviously the thing that we're kind of making fun of here is this idea that like hitting is actually solved with a system of movement. I find that entire idea just incredibly preposterous. And I'll tell you why. If one of the best baseball players of all time, and I'm just going to throw Mike Trout into that mix, regardless of whether some amount of his career output has been dampened by injury, and also the Angels' semi-consistent ineptitude, which is a team thing. That's not a Trout thing. But anyways, at this stage in his career, he's introducing new swing movements and something that I think you could frame as being like a somewhat of a drastic change at this stage in his career. I think that does say a lot about this idea that we have that in youth baseball, you're grooving in like a swing movement that is respective of one pitch, and the environment that informed that type of thing is obviously just spending a crap a ton time on the tee, where you are divorcing the swing from any type of like perception action coupling, and you're like constantly seeking to refine the movement in search of this like panacea of visual appeal. I don't know what it is. And like, I was just talking to somebody this morning, came in, did a little bit of a facility tour, talked about some stuff that we might be able to do for his team. And one of the things we were talking about is this idea that like, with really young kids, you can look at them and see that their skill specific movements, so the baseball specific movements, throwing or hitting, are not like particularly well defined yet. Kids are not small adults. Some smarter person than me said that at some point, and I've just continued to regurgitate it. Or maybe I came up with it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Point being that like, you look at these kids and you talk about like one swing flaw, like a lot of really young hitters share, is that they load and they go to swing, and as part of like that load, they just kind of like dump the barrel entirely and they just lose it behind them. And then once they lose it, they don't really have a choice to do anything other than just like shove the hands and push it forward. It's very different than actually swinging the bat and like, bracing with that front leg and using it to stabilize and rotate around. It's very different than a push. Some of that is just because a young hitter is getting bodied by the weight of the bat that they have. Why? I'm like, I'm not asking this in a rhetorical sense, although I kind of know the answer. But think about why that is. The reason is that their bodies don't have the capacity to stabilize and rotate the object relative to two things: its size, weight, and swing weight. So there's three separate things, but I think the thing that matters the most is just the swing weight. But two, their capacity. Okay, well, how do you solve that? You're already swinging like a 30-20 or a 27-17. 27-15s might be hard to find. Well, what's the other way to solve that problem? Is it spending money to chase like the perfect implement? Or is it the other thing, which is holistically develop the person who's swinging the implement so that they don't get bodied by a drop 10? Okay, so what does that look like? It looks like developing the engine and then developing the skill. But when it comes to developing the skill, right? So if we're going to solve this part of the equation, you're going to go over here to the skill side of things. Is the problem that we're trying to solve one pitch in one location with no amount of perception action coupling? No. Very clearly, very definitively, that is not the factual problem that we are trying to solve once you stop playing T-ball. And yet and still, we have high schoolers who spend an inordinate amount of time on the tee trying to groove their swing in an environment that by definition strips any amount of adjustability away from it. And if you do introduce variability into that, oh, well, we're going to get smart about T work. We're going to move it in. We're going to move it out. We're going to move it up on the plate. We're going to move it deep in the plate. That's still blocked repetitive practice of that specific thing. And what is it divorced from? Perception. It's divorced from the perception and action process of figuring out when and where and how you need to swing in order to barrel up a ball. And like this whole thing with Trout adding in a step back, if this isn't the biggest and brightest signal that like we need hitters who are holistically capable of a bunch of different movement solutions that work for them at an almost individual level and is linked to perception and action coupling, it's just right there, man. It's just right there. But I challenge you, and the reason that I get fired up about this is that like I know that if I spend my Saturday driving around to a bunch of different Little League fields in my area, you know what pregame hitting is going to look like? A lot of tee work. And I get it. I totally get it. I get that you're a youth baseball coach and you don't have enough help. But part of the reason that you don't have enough help is that this army of moms and dads that are driving these kids to you, they feel like there's some sort of like technical ability that they don't have that inhibits their ability to help you as the coach. So they'll get that kid ready and they'll get that kid dressed and they'll get that kid fed and they will get that kid to your field and they will walk away. They want their kids to perform better, but they feel like, well, from a technical standpoint, I don't know enough. I can't help enough because like there's this idea that there's this specific subset of knowledge about how the swing is supposed to visually look and how to move towards that they lack. And they presume because they lack that they can't help you. You know what those parents, the skill that they actually need, and this is the best possible problem to have because it's a solvable skill. They might not know how to like side soft toss. They might not know how to give you good, consistent flips. Okay, we're talking about adults with adult level capacity for learning and coordination. How many weeks is it going to take you to train a parent, a mom or a dad, who has no technical baseball background to simply give like good, solid, repeatable side soft or front flips? Let's call it 2 weeks. The moment that you equip these parents with an understanding that it's not about their ability to like understand something technically, it's about their ability to consistently deliver the problem in a competitively relevant fashion. Now you afford yourself the opportunity to have hitters get better at hitting by trying to solve the problem that looks more like hitting in the game. It's going to make your whole team better. You're going to hit more balls. You're going to score more runs because you are actually working about solving the problem in real life, in the game, not this other like perpetually at the end of my fingertips aesthetic perfection BS. Because if Mike Trout at this age can add something to his moveset, what does that tell you? And again, let's tell the whole story. You can find videos of Mike Trout doing a lot of tee work and talking about his tee routine. Fine. I get that. But you have to give an equal amount of weight to what he's talking about the tee and what the reason that he's actually able to produce, which is the link between the tee work and the competitive environment, which requires adjustability. And I have to keep like beating this dead horse because I listen to parents and they talk about going to do lessons. Oh, you know, my kid does this. My kid steps in the bucket. My kid drops his hands. And it's like, we're all like so desperate to come up with like a grocery store list of all the flaws that our kids have in their swing while they're also kids, while they're also relearning to move their bodies every like 6 to 12 weeks. But I want that list. I want this binary accounting of all the things that my child does wrong. And I will take that account and I will divorce that from the more pertinent question, which is, does the kid catch barrels or not? When the ball is moving, can this kid adjust and catch a barrel? Do they step in the bucket while they do it? Yes. Who cares? Remember a guy named Chris Davis? Just think about the landscape of different swings that we have visual evidence for, that perform at the highest level of the game. From Ted Williams to Mickey Mantle to Babe Ruth to Barry Bonds to Jeff Bagwell, whole lot of B's in there, right? Let me think of another hitter. Frank Thomas, Jose Altuve, Giancarlo Stanton, Julio Rodriguez, Hanley Ramirez. Like, there's so much variance. There's so much signal that the thing that these guys are good at is getting on time, flush contact with bat speed in a damn near infinitely adjustable environment. And we see that at the highest level of competition. We go, you know what's good to teach these kids, to teach the next generation of hitters? Put them on a tee. Like, I need you to understand how desperately I wish that I had the time to create my first ever burner account as Step Back Man and run this play. Because all I would do is every single day, I would repost a video of some big leaguer doing something, and I would claim, absent any evidence to this, that like the reason that guy is good is because he follows the principles of the step back system. And if you don't see it, that's your problem. You don't have the vision. God, I wish I had the time. I really, really, really wish I had the time. Like, you could literally print money. You could print money as Step Back Man with this horse S approach, this binary approach to what's good and what's not, because like we have an appetite for it. And I really, really, really struggle to understand why. I really do. Like, you see these videos of these young kids who are like 3, 4, 5 years old, and they're out there like swinging like that long, skinny yellow bat, and they're just catching barrels. They're just hitting nukes. And it's this very like free and open environment that's centered around the thing that it should be centered around, which is just like, catch a barrel, dude. But at a certain point, 8, 9, 10, we seem to like culturally make this shift where instead of just like celebrating the accomplishment of the task, we're like, well, now it's time for you to be like exceptionally technical. That's the way that we should understand your swing. And big shocker to anybody that's listening to this podcast for more than once or twice, that just drives me absolutely insane. So yeah, step back, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. I really, really wish I had the time to create that burner account and just launch into this. Hey, and if you can't see it, if you don't follow the step back system, I don't know. Maybe this joke only lands for like me and a small cadre of people that were also around on hitting Twitter in like circa 2014, 2015, 2018 ish. I don't know. In other related news of stupid thoughts about hitting, let's talk about Kevin McGonigle. He's real good. Early season performance is insane. MLB Network starts to talk about his stuff, and you got Mark DeRosa up there talking about how quick his hands are. And he goes, you can't teach that. It just makes my head want to explode. Like, performatively, you know, if I could just like do that when instances where I needed to signal how preposterous something was, I could just like explode my head on command and then reconstruct the thing. I don't really want to die. Uh, it drives me up the flippin' wall when people in positions like that say that type of stuff, because you're constructing this wall around performance that doesn't need to exist. And at an N of 1 level, Kevin McGonigle did not grow up with 80 grade bat speed. He wasn't born with that. It is a thing that was developed. It is a result of stimulus and adaptation over a long period of time. And the more that you have like national level commentators and people that talk about our game, and they put up this wall that's like, you can't do that. Like, yeah, I am fully cognizant of the fact that at a certain level, there is a physiological and a biological reality between the difference of output between a guy like Aaron Judge and, I don't know, pick like a 50th percentile height and body weight big leaguer. I understand that there are gaps. I understand that there are differences. However, find me a big leaguer that can't hit a ball 100 miles an hour. Okay? You can't. Why? Because they've all trained to get to this level of output, and that training is a result of skill and the holistic. Hey, how do you actually learn how to develop ballistic rotational speed while swinging a bat? That's a thing. You also need to have the athletic engine underneath, right? The underpinnings of that thing that allow you to combine both of those things and have elite performance. Both of those things can be developed. You're going to have different ceilings. Okay? You're just going to have different ceilings. And that's across all types of sports. But there's like a specific level of performance that I think is accessible to damn near anybody who just makes the right choices. I saw this video with like Paul Skeens the other day. He's like, yeah, I think anybody should be able to learn how to throw a ball 90 miles an hour. And he's right. But we treat performance like there's like this walled garden, and we just throw up this idea that somehow lands that like, well, you just can't teach that. BS. Can everybody learn how to throw a ball 100? I don't think so. 90 though? I think this stuff is a lot more accessible than we believe it to be. And as evident of that fact, look at the rising threshold of baseline average fastball velocity at the major league level. More and more guys are throwing harder and harder. That's not only because some dudes are going to live like Mason Miller style, but because the floor is rising. What does that tell you? If the signal that you extrapolate is not that just like there are like core levels of performance that are accessible through development, so long as your choices reflect that priority, I don't know what other signal that you can pull from that. Throwing a ball 90 miles an hour should be much more accessible to more and more kids if they just make choices that are in alignment with the things that you need to have in order to get there. But they don't. Why? It's opportunity cost, man. You choose to do this thing over here that inhibits your ability to develop the skill. And all you do is you spend your time, you play the game, you play the game, you play the game. Or when you do train, you don't train around the sports science proven theories and facts of things that we understand to be true about development. You don't understand that bat speed trainings just kind of work. And there's a bunch of different flavors of them. I think ours is pretty good. I think the bats that I've patented are pretty good at developing that thing. But there's many roads to Rome here. And instead of accepting the truth of that, you put up these walls. Oh, McGonigle, man, you can't teach that. BS, dude. Not only are you wrong, but you are perverting the understanding of normal people that are not intimately embedded in our sport of what they and their children are capable of. And in doing so, you're making the game worse. And I understand that that's not your intention, but when you stand up there and you go, you can't teach that. That is exactly what you were doing. You want to put up a picture of Stanton hitting a ball 117 or whatever and say you can't teach that? Fine. Hey man, I think that's fine. But there is a threshold for the things that can be taught that you are being it feels like you're being obtuse about. And it makes the game worse. So yeah, done with the hitting ranting. Perfect. Let's rant about something else. Let's talk about this week in pitch counts. I haven't formally brought it back. I got some stuff that I'm going to do this week. I got a couple instances of just like some horrific behavior. So let's talk about it. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Shout out to Nate Schacht. Nate, let me know if I'm saying your last name wrong. I'm not trying to screw it up. But Nate runs a group on Facebook called Wisconsin Youth Baseball. It's like Wisconsin Youth Baseball Pitch Counts or something like that. You should be able to find it. And Nate's out there, man, holding people accountable, and it fires me up. Interesting thing that he caught. So there's a couple teams out there. There's a 14U team. Kid goes 68 pitches on an inning and a third. Yeah, you heard that right. You did. 68 pitches on an inning and a third. Golly. That's pretty brutal. For a number of different reasons. And again, first time, last time, recurring listeners know we've talked about this often. Fatigue goes up, kinetic and kinematic performance goes down. If you continue to pitch through that stuff, you're sequencing worse, you're out fatigued, bad stuff is going to happen. Your risk of injury accelerates rapidly. 37x, I think, is what USA Baseball will tell you. 68 pitches on an inning and a third is gross. It's really, 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 really gross. Feels like somebody's asleep at the wheel. Let me give you the rest of the stat line. 4 hits, 9 runs, 4 earned, 7 walks. I can't see the punchies, but like, not great. Not great. So 68 in an inning and a third. So that's pretty not great Saturday. Normally, what you'd want to see coming out of that is like, hey, let's rest, right? Had a lot of fatigue. 68 and a third in an inning and a third is a lot. Let's just like back off a little bit. Maybe we're throwing like a pen on, gosh, I don't know, Thursday. If this was a Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday on a Saturday. Hey, let's try to figure out what's going on there. And I don't even think you should be going cold between that Saturday and that Thursday, but I digress. What you probably don't want to do is have that same kid come back and pitch 100 pitches on a Sunday, like the day after. So your 2-day total is 168. And again, think about the amount of concentrated fatigue that 68 pitches in an inning and a third means. And then throw in 100 pitches the next day. 100 pitches, I guess, went a little bit better. 100 pitches, 65 for strikes, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned, 4 walks, 5 punchies. Did enough, though. You did enough. I think you got the dub. And what did it cost? Knowing what I know, the odds that the amount of acute workload that has been created over the course of these 2 days is probably not enough that, like, on this day, on Saturday, April 18th and Sunday, April 19th, that you, like, grenaded the growth plate just, like, right off the gate. Probably not great. But this is the exact type of stuff that unless you curtail this behavior, your acute to chronic workload ratio, meaning the ratio of workload that you have built up for. And again, when we start thinking about this stuff in terms of like ACR, easiest thing to do is just like, let's take this out of a baseball specific context. Think about this as just like getting prepped to run a marathon, right? Getting prepped to go do a strength competition. Unless you're telling me that the way that this kid is built up is to do an obscene amount of work in a heavily fatigued state on a Saturday, and then immediately doing a high volume of work the day after. And even that in and of itself is just such an incredibly idiotic way to train. All you're doing is just setting this kid up for medial epicondylitis, right? Little league elbow. That's just what you're doing. You are setting this kid up to have some amount of injury end up at his or her doorstep. And it's preventable. And it's absolutely preventable. And to shed an idea on the problem here, what Nate's doing with this Facebook group is he's shining a light on it, right? He's shining a very direct light on it. And he actually had a parent of this kid kind of come in and comment. And goes, "Hey, I appreciate you looking out for the kid's arms. For context, my son threw 168 pitches over the weekend, but we were watching his mechanics, recovery, and how he felt throughout. He wasn't showing signs of fatigue. We would shut him down immediately if he had. Pitch count is a useful guideline, but it's not the only indicator of stress on the arm. Also, he played right field after he was done pitching." I think a lot of parents would have this exact same perspective. The issue is it's just like your eyeballs are not a good enough way to measure the fatigue that is accumulating. They just aren't. And first of all, like we're watching his mechanics, recovery, and how he felt throughout. I doubt you're watching the radar gun. I think oftentimes the radar gun has the capacity to tell a fairly direct story about the amount of fatigue that a kid is experiencing. In the last couple weeks, in the high school baseball season, my son pitched against a kid who's committed to a D1, might get a little bit of draft interest. There were 5 or 6 scouts came to one of his games. I didn't have my radar set up, but I'm watching all these stalker guns that get pulled out, and the kid was 2-3 miles an hour, I think, for at least from the ones that I saw off of like the stated PR that he's had. Had a little bit of like a scuffly start, and velo starts to go down, right? That like, why? Fatigue, kinematic changes, decrease performance. Like this is just the scientifically understood thing, and this isn't even baseball specific. Do a set of 20 push-ups, see how long it takes you to complete them. Do another set of 20, see how long it takes you to complete them. Do a third set of 20, see how long it takes you to complete them. What is happening? The rate of output is going down because fatigue is continuing to accumulate. Performance goes down, fatigue goes up. So you're watching his mechanics. Okay, that's part of the story. These kinetic and kinematic changes do start to accumulate. I'm not sure that your iSoto is a good enough test for that measurement. I don't say that to disparage the attempt. I mean, certainly I'm glad that you're looking. I don't think that that's good enough. And even more so, the issue is like, this is what we're doing in April. This is what we're doing in April. Somebody sent me another box score. It was the game score was 13-15. Okay, let me read you the line of the kid that pitched in the first. 1 innings pitched, 6 hits, 13 runs, 10 earned, 6 walked, 2 punchies, 75 pitches in 1 inning. like there's this whole conversation to be had about, select and travel ball and kind of these increasingly competition defined environments for youth sports and whether that's appropriate or not. You talk to my good friends Seth Taylor and Travis Snyder over at 3A Athletics, 3aathletics.com. Go talk to my boys. If you want access to some of the support materials that they have for be able to help your child have a more holistically, emotionally, non-traumatic, traumatic experience in sports, they would tell you that one of their big concerns is just like organized sports and the trauma that has the capacity to produce in young children. And that's true. This is the other thing. This is the other type of like physical trauma that you are producing, because again, Saturday, April 11th, you go 75 pitches in one inning. And I have all the reason in the world to be worried about what these kids' workload look like over the course of the entire year. We haven't even gotten to May yet. And this is how we're treating children. So you got May, June, July. That's another 3 months. And when you start the season off with this incredible imbalance between the acute to chronic workload ratio, what you were prepared versus what you did, and then you're going to run that over the course of the entire year, and we're like surprised that an overuse injury like medial epicondylitis has a domain-specific name when we call it Little League elbow. You know what we should call it? Sometimes it's really hard for me to not curse. It's really hard for me to not curse because we call it Little League elbow, and you know what we should call it? We should call it F your elbow. Who cares about your elbow syndrome? Nobody cared about your elbow syndrome. It's what it is. We optimized for this. We optimized for this game changer box score. We solved that. And in doing so, we did not care about a child's health. It ain't Little League elbow anymore. It's F your elbow. F your elbow. It's overuse. And it's preventable, and we simply don't care enough. Hence, everything we're trying to do with Pitch Smart 2.0, if that's what it ends up being called, and the system of universal pitch counts based on biomechanics and actual throwing workload data and universal implementation of said standard. If you want more details about that, rewind to the last pod. I'll give you the full soup about the whole thing. Now, with all that said, let's talk about what doing it right actually can look like, right? Let's talk about it. I had somebody else sent me a post that had just like really great context. Where is it? Here we go. Because I think sometimes when you look at teams' behavior, it's very easy to see the contrast in teams who are optimizing for health because they're not overdoing it and choosing an unhealthy pattern of workload attribution. What does that look like? I'll show it to you. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids throwing a combined total of 18 innings over the course of a weekend. Okay? I'm sorry, this is 4 games. So obviously one of these games also got run ruled. Here's the pitch counts by player. 69 pitches, 68 pitches, 61 pitches, 59 pitches, and 19 pitches. And that's a weekend, 4 games. Here's what it looks like on the other side. Kid number 1, 131 pitches. Kid number 2, 107 pitches. Kid number 3, 79 pitches. And then you have 2 kids at 36, or I'm sorry, 1 kid at 36, 1 at 34, and then the other at 20. So one of these two things is distributed, right? Where like, look at the number, man. This team very clearly was like, hey, nobody's going to go more than about 65 to 70. And they ran that playbook and they committed to it regardless of how the scores went. They held the line. This other team is the other thing. I'm going to pitch the most competitive kids as frequently as I need to in order to get the results that I want. And just in case anybody needs this context, what my buddy Charlie that tagged me in this put up, or I don't know if he tagged me or he just put it out. The two teams threw the same number of games, and the other team played one more inning. So it wasn't that there was a great inning disparity relative to pitch distribution. He also notes that there's a little bit of a difference here in strike percentage, okay? His kids' team, where there's this distribution of like 65, 70 or less, 64.5% strikes. The other team, 50.8% strikes. Now, I'm going to assume that the reason that you have one kid that threw a $131 and one kid that threw 107 and one kid that threw 79 is that these other kids who threw couldn't find the zone. Like just not throwing as many strikes. So what those coaches did is they threw the kids who were more consistent as strike throwers more often. You're solving for the game result instead of solving for health. But it goes deeper than that because the inception of this problem is that you had to go play weekend tournaments with a team that isn't prepared to throw strikes. Why? Because like that's well, how else do I provide value? I have to go play tournaments. And if I have a team that like simply like has a structural problem with not enough kids can throw strikes enough, instead of going like, well, we need to get better at that thing, and we have to get better at that thing outside of this particular game container so that we can inevitably get there and do it in a healthy way, we just said, nope, we got to do this. It's like you show up to the racetrack and you're running like 10-second quarter miles, and instead of going like, well, I've got my parachute and I've got my 5-point harness and I've got my helmet and I've got a fireproof suit and all this stuff. You're like, well, I didn't bring my helmet, and, the tension around my seatbelt's broken, so that doesn't work. And, like I meant to bring my fireproof suit, but like I kind of just forgot. So I've just got like my sweats and a t-shirt and, and the parachute on the back. Well, like we used that last weekend, so I didn't repack it. But I'm still going to run this. I'm going to try to run this 10-second quarter anyways. And your car ends up in like a flaming, spinning fireball. And you're like, I can't believe we're not protected for this. Like, are you serious? And I get the kids can have bad days. Believe me, real life lived experience. But if you are not confident that the kids on your team are competitive enough to be able to get through a weekend without a disproportionate percentage of the workload landing on the two kids who can throw strikes, then for the love of God, why do you have to play tournaments? Why do we have such a binary approach on the way that these teams should function? Why doesn't we, for 1 second, go, you know what, we're not ready yet. Hey, let's do some coach pitch scrimmages. Let's continue to build up our workload. And while we do that, continue to build up the stimulus and signal that we need and coach these kids up so that they can throw strikes. Nah, man, we got to go out there and like go to try to chase that plastic. We got to try to chase that plastic. What other choice do we have? As if there aren't an infinite number of choices you could pursue. Like, man, that is a thing that you can do. You can distribute this type of stuff. It doesn't have to always be that way. But, it's just, all too often, we have teams who just like act as if they don't really have any other ways that they can go about solving this problem. And it just absolutely blows my mind. And certainly, this example of like this distributed approach is not the only one that you can pursue. Jonathan Hightower, shout out to Jonathan, pod listener, sent me a message and goes, I wanted to share a surprisingly positive story with you in case you are inclined to give a shout out to some guys doing the right way. Jonathan, you are absolutely right that I am, because if I'm just going to get fired up about the people that are doing it wrong and I don't shed enough of a light on the people that are doing it right, I think people are going to feel like, oh, it's just like this keeping up with the Joneses thing, and like abusing youth pitch counts is just like the way that we operate as a standard. So let's shine some light. My son is in 6th grade and plays on a 12U travel team as well as middle school team at a small school. Middle school team plays 60-90. Son is a late birthday, so he's one of the youngest, if not the youngest, on both teams. He's a tall and slender kid with a good arm, pitches and plays short and center. I know what that looks like, man. He goes, due to recent rains, we find ourselves this week with a game tonight, doubleheader tomorrow, tournament this weekend, a doubleheader on Monday. Given my understanding from Driveline, I was very concerned about the workload for my son. Great, man. I love that you're even thinking about it. It fires me up. Middle school team is coached by my high school varsity coach, who stays pretty busy. Even though I hated to do it, I reached out to him by text late night so we could talk about my son's workload. To my very present surprise, he'd already reached out to my son's travel coach and developed a plan to limit his high intent throwing over this stretch of games. Plan included limiting the days on which he'll be available to pitch count limits on no more than 35 per appearance, and some mandatory time for him to be in the lineup but not on the field. It was a well thought out plan, and as a parent, I could not ask for more between two coaches. I know you don't usually share names when talking about the negative stuff, but if you're inclined to name some names on the positive side, the coaches involved are Walt Schiller from the Canes United program in Tyrone, Georgia, and Rodney Dickerson from the Heritage School in Noonan, Georgia. Hopefully that encourages you that there's some folks thinking about things the right way. Fire me up one time. Walt, Rodney, thank you guys. Like literally, man, we need more of this, because it's possible. It's absolutely positive to have coaches who are like, what do you got? What do you got? How do we do this in a way that keeps a kid healthy? And the reality is that until we get to a point where we have universal pitch counts and universal reporting, so the right hand and left hand inherently talk to each other, these are the level of conversations that need to be had. So Walt, Rodney, man, thank you guys. Thank you guys for doing it the right way. Thank you guys for choosing to prioritize the child over a different question, which is, how do I optimize for me? How do I optimize for my team? It takes some character and some conviction to be able to take this type of approach. We need more people that have this type of perspective on the game. So thank you guys for doing it, because we need it. Here's another thing, but this is like not me ranting, and it potentially might be a thing that I cry about. So if you're running that little like office pool, how many podcasts is Deven going to have where he actually does cry? Then, keep your betting hands warm. There's been a lot of learning for my son as a junior. And I think that's learning for him, and I think it's learning for myself and my wife too. I've never parented a kid who was on the doorstep of playing college baseball before. I knew that it was what we were building towards. I knew that was what he wanted to build towards. But like going through this experience it's a singular, unique thing that I don't think you really understand the perspective until you go through it. And that is where we are right now, man. And I think the simpler way to tell this story would simply be to go like, look, Danny, you go, first ever showcase, throws 91, decent results in scrimmages, had to adjust to kind of like the environment of high school baseball and everything that entails, and then, figured it out. Last Monday? Yeah, last Monday. My son got on the bump to start, went complete game shutout, 3 hits, 1 walk, 13 punchies. Look great. Looked great. And my kid firmly wearing my rose-colored glasses, and I get all that. I've also been watching youth baseball for a lot of years. And when he does this thing where he's able to now just kind of bully hitters a little bit with fastball changeup and then start to introduce the other parts of the arsenal, just like, I don't know, like throwing the changeup away to lefties, the backdoor turbo sinker to righties, like letting the slider run, middle away to get the chase swings, getting comfortable throwing the four seamer top shelf to get those swing throughs. The performance stuff is cool, but I think when you get close to it, and I don't mean close to the game, I mean close to the players, I think it reveals something about, some of just the pressure that's inherent with, like, being in these places where, you feel like you're on the path to the thing, but nothing's guaranteed and nothing is locked in. And you're in this space of high school baseball where, like, 95, 94, 97% of the kids are not going to play college. So you have like these moments of high level competition where every once in a while, that one starter on the other team that's in your conference is going to come back around, and then, you're going to see what it looks like for a kid to be, upper eights, low nines with a good three pitch mix. And then there's that other school where they're going to draw, 21 kids that they have to see between a JV and a varsity program. And you might, not see a pitch above 72, 73 miles an hour for a week and a half, depending on the schedule. And then you layer in this other thing, which is, how does the way that I'm performing now inform my opportunities to play at the next level, which informs this broader question of, like, is all this time that I'm putting into this thing, where is the value, and how do I understand that? And I guess the thing that I'll say is, I know definitively when I was a younger coach and certainly a younger parent that I probably sent signals to both of my kids that, like, poor performance in the current term was a risk. Like I know that I sent signals to them that it was like a thing to worry about, because that was how I treated it. And I have to take accountability for that, especially as somebody who, like, not only, like, I have the hat, I have the coach hat on and I have the parent hat on. And sometimes there isn't a lot of differentiation between those two hats and those two roles. So I got to take accountability for that, man. I have to understand the power of the signals that I might have sent in those circumstances where we treated poor performance on a field in a game where children are still learning to play the game as if it was something to be like, there's fear there. What does this mean? What does this mean about me? I know that there's things that I did to put fuel on that fire. I will say that in the last 6 or 7 years, but more concentratedly, and over the course of the last 2 or 3, I think I've gotten a little bit better at sending the other signal. But just because I got better at sending that signal doesn't mean that, I'd be a lot easier if I could just brainwash people, sometimes specifically my children, but it doesn't work that way. Like they have their own experience that they have to grapple with and provide context to in order to figure out how to navigate this whole thing. And you know, there's parts of this that are just going to like stay private because they need to stay private. But I will say that I had a conversation with my son over the course of this experience that very much revolved around like we got two choices. And the choice is we can either think about this experience of your junior year in high school and going into your junior summer ball season as like in very stark terms. I either did or did not perform the way that I expected. And in those circumstances, when you perform the way that you want, hey, like we're riding high. But you expose yourself to all this variance on the other side about what it means when you don't. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to try to just be more receptive to the learning. Like what did I learn today? What did I learn this season? What did I learn this year? And I get that we're going to get to a point where the competitive result does matter, and it is going to kind of inform some of the doors that are open and available for him, right? We're talking about some of the things that we had in the summer coming up, some of which may entail him playing against a little bit higher level of competition, because that is a thing. There's levels to this thing. Like the conference that he's in high school is certainly not the best conference in the state, much less the country. You get into the summer ball circuit, and there's the local stuff, and then there's like the concentrated, like the talented kids in the local area, and then there's the other thing, where you're going to go down to World Wood Bat, you're going to go down to UBC, you're going to go you're going to go to Cary, right? You're like there's that level of things, and at that level, some of the truth of the opportunities that those kids that compete in that side of the pond, it is going to be about like, hey, well, how do you perform against this different cast of characters? And I guess I wish more parents understood that like there is some amount of truth to the whole like, if you're good, they're going to find you thing. But I think that stuff is like very definition dependent. If you're good at a 1A school throwing like 74, 75, that's one thing. Good at a 4A school, low to mid nines, that's another thing. Striker Pence, Hunter Pence's kid, throwing like hundos, competing on like national circuit, that's another thing. There's one part of this that like you can, I really truly think that you can work yourself into. I really do. I feel like, again, much like this idea that like more kids should be able to throw 90, some of this type of like working yourself into a high level competitor in kind of like a big fish, small pond thing. I think that's possible, because when I look at those kids in our just like in a local area and other areas in the country, a lot of it is just like, man, it is the kids who work really, really hard and they put a lot of time into this thing. And then as you get kind of further and further away from normal, the more abnormal the amount of commitment becomes. And also you start to see some abnormal physiology, right? And that's not where my son is. Like we're taking care of the things that we can. You don't get 5'11", 185 or 190 by accident. Certainly not when your dad, I think, lied. Maybe not lied. Let's not allegedly. I allegedly may have said that I weighed like 155 pounds when I graduated high school, and I definitely did not weigh 155 when I graduated high school. Certainly a little bit above that now. Point being that just there's some amount of this stuff that I think you can choose to obtain. You certainly still have to perform, right? Like you have to. But I think that performance is a lot more accessible than some people give it credit for, because it's just a reflection of how much time and effort and energy you want to put into this thing. But I also think that it's more likely that you end up on that path when you view this whole experience through this lens of not binary black and white. Did I perform the way that I expect or did I not? But when you're able to separate yourself in this definition of yourself away from the outcome and simply approach it like, what did I learn? And I'm telling you that I know that there were opportunities that I missed between the ages of 5 and 15 to lean further down in into that path. And I think to a degree, had I done that, I would have subtly helped my kids get closer to being receptive to the learning instead of fearing it. So if you're listening to this because you think that, like, every episode, I'd love to feel confident that I dropped some type of gem in here that helps you, like, think about the hitting that you're going to do with your son or daughter in the cage or in the backyard or on a field in this next week or 2 weeks. I hope that I can deliver some of that type of value. The thing that I think is just as important is, as a parent, being able to help your child understand that their journey in this thing really should be focused on learning. And if we're going to extract the maximum amount of value in learning, that means we can't run away from the things that we fear. And I realized that, like, I might be treading a little bit closer to regurgitating some of the things that I just said last week. Again, I'm a man of very limited original opinions, but I'm telling you that, like, within the course of this last week, I had a reminder of that specific thing when it came to my son's pitching performance. And it's this weird, I don't know, like this Jedi mind trick thing that, like, once you start to get a little bit less attuned to the things that you fear and more attuned to the things you can learn, my own personal experience, my lived anecdotal one-of-one experience, is that I think that when my kids have gotten closer to that thing, and certainly not only just true of my own kids, but hundreds and hundreds of kids that I've coached over these years, I think that helps them get closer to the truth of how good they could possibly be and how much value that they can extract from these competitive experiences that they are inevitably going to be on both sides on. It's a tricky thing. And, in the course of, a couple weeks with my kids, going from, hey man, this thing is not making me feel good right now. And I don't know what that means for me. To going from that to then literally I'm on the couch with my wife and son, my wife, best possible partner that I could possibly have. Hi, honey. Shout out to you. I don't really do this podcast just for all of us. I also do it for my N of one listener. We're on the couch talking about, doing this World What About UBC thing this summer. And I said to her, like, I want to make sure that she understands that, like, this is going to be like a next level of competition. And we haven't dipped our toes in that. We've dipped our toes a little bit. Played on a team full of grown college men, most of them graduates, last summer. Played 18U baseball in Italy the summer before that as a 15-year-old. Did the PG thing, like, saw some other stuff there. But this is kind of a next level of thing. And I'm saying that mostly to her to make sure she understands it. And again, as parents, to make sure that we, understand what it is we're working in towards. And I kind of like heat check my son. Like, hey man, you know that that's what what we're going towards. You feel okay with that? You feel nervous? You feel nerve sighted is a thing that we call it in our house. And he goes, "Nah, man, I'm ready." Understand fully. I'll cop to this. Fires me up when he says stuff like that. But what I really hope is the emotion that's underneath that thing is like, I accept what could be coming. I accept it and I want it regardless. That's the thing. We talk about intrinsic motivation. We talk about helping these kids want a thing just for them. And I will be perfectly honest that, like, to hear my son go, "Yeah, man, I'm ready for it." To know that he's choosing the harder thing and he understands the things that might come with that. For him to still want to choose that, I don't get fired up because it's baseball. I get fired up about it because of what it reveals about his character. At a personal level, I got stuff going on that, I don't know, man. Anybody else that's in their late 40s or cruising into 50, and you got parents that are aging, and you got your first appointment you might have to make with a neurologist to get a cognitive baseline, and you're worried about your heart and your cholesterol. Like, these are all things that as a person who's entering this next phase of life where my age starts with a number 5, these are all things that are very relevant to me. And the thing that trails with that is a little bit of an understanding that, like, I'm just at an age where people I have grown up with are dealing with health stuff. There's no, none of this is a foregone conclusion. Nobody gets out alive. But, like, it starts to be a little bit more real, that side of things. And it gives me cause to reflect on how tenuous all of this truly is. And, I don't think you can have that perspective when you're 20. I don't even know if you can have that perspective when you're 30. Unless you have the fortune of being exposed to some of this true reality of, like, how fragile this whole thing is when you were younger. And I realize that I'm fortunate enough to have been shielded by that when I was those ages, but now it's all dropping on my doorstep. So when I know that tomorrow is not necessarily guaranteed, and when I know that this thing is just, like, definitively not going to last forever, it does make me feel, I don't think satisfied is the right word. Maybe it's relieved. Maybe that's what it is. I think the feeling is relief that when I get this little peek into what is emerging of the character of the children that my wife and I have made and raised, that, like, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. And again, to a degree, relieved that, if a meteor fell on me tomorrow, that I have a little bit of insight into the character of these people that we are raising and how that is shaping up to be confident that they're going to get through this thing okay. And it doesn't mean it's not going to be without struggle. It doesn't mean it's not going to, it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that they're not going to make mistakes, because God knows the amount of mistakes that I made between the ages of like 17 and 27. Hell, if you want to be honest, let's talk about the ages between 17 and 37. I understand the amount of time that they're in the struggle and the growth and development they're going to go through in that period of time. But when these little, like, I don't know, man, you just get this little like peek as a parent into the character of the child that you are raising. And when you get that little window of insight and it makes you feel proud, it's just such a uniquely powerful emotion to feel. And, and in so much as it matters, I think, again, this is the thing I talk about all the time, man. I just think that the game is a great conduit for that. And that's the reason why I'm glad that my kid is going through this experience. That's why I'm glad that my daughter played baseball for as long as she did, and competed her tail off in other sports, because I think it all kind of is. It's informing the character of the adults that they are becoming, and being able to get in a little bit of an insight there and be proud and happy and satisfied. And I don't know, man, it fills my cup in a very specific way. Sorry, I didn't mean to really go down that path. I really, truly didn't. But that's just where I am. And because the fact that I come in here every year, week and a half, 2 weeks, or at least that's the intention. Sometimes that stuff comes out. That's all I got for today. Hopefully that's enough. If I can leave you with one other thing, I would lead you a little bit of words from the original tribal chief, Roman Reigns, who said after winning the title at WrestleMania this last weekend, no matter what you do in life, they're all going to doubt you. People want to see you do good, but not better than them. So just keep going. Hey, man, if you know me in real life, you know that I'm not going to let an opportunity to converge wrestling and youth development into one little thing. So when Roman says some stuff like that, it's kind of just like my job to be able to tell you. So shout out to the tribal chief, the greatest of all time, Roman Reigns. Shout out to anybody else who watched WrestleMania and had their whole weekend hijacked. Hi, I'm part of the group too. Shout out to, again, like we just talked about, our guys, Walt, Schiller, and Rodney Dickerson, for doing it right. For anybody that's doing this thing wrong, again, that's why a systems-based approach, universal pitch counts, user reporting is the thing we're trying to bring and introduce into youth baseball. I'm working tryouts. Driveline Academy teams in Washington here. Tryouts are starting. Go to the link tree in our bio on socials and get a link to be able to sign up for that. Tell a friend to tell a friend. 90-minute tryout. You're going to get a little bit of an eval. This is where you are right now. This is where we think you can get better. You want to be on a team. You want to do that. That's great. We also got some training products coming. We're going to continue to make the training that we do here at Driveline a lot more accessible to our audience. I shouldn't probably talk about that stuff because it's not like final yet, but it's coming soon. I think we're going to have some training products live that are just going to make this a little bit more accessible for families to be able to come in, assess, do actual training with a coach. We got some stuff coming. And also that whole Powered by Driveline thing. If this is of interest for you, you're running a youth baseball team and you want this type of support, whether that's educational material for now how to be able to do a better job of coaching your kids, running an off-season training program, pregame program, how to just change the posture of this whole thing. You want that type of level of support and to be able to run a team powered by Driveline. You come in, assess with us. We write you an off-season training program. You coach them. We give you all this resource, access to the technology stack. You want some of that sauce? Deven at Driveline with 2 E's. Email me. I got 6 or 7 people that think this is the thing they want to do. I'm going to be reaching out to these folks to do a little bit of a kind of market research, see how that lines up with some stuff that we'd be able to provide and give you guys value. Could be a thing. So if that sounds like a thing for you, you want to run a powered by Driveline team, and that, whatever that would kind of entail, email me. Deven at Driveline with 2 E's. Yeah, that's all I got. My name is Deven. I'm down by law. I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.